Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Dave Boynton, and tonight we're going to be talking about the functional medicine and complementary approach to the immune system. Myself, Dr. Luke Howe, and Debbie Belshaw are going to be going into details on what you can do to help keep yourself and your family safe by the utilization of chiropractic care, knowing how to keep your immune system strong, what to avoid, what do your labs mean, and what supplements can you take to ensure these things. So I hope you enjoy your time and are able to learn a lot from our presentation.
Hello, this is Dr. Luke, and I'm going to cover how chiropractic care can really help with the immune system and function. So the first thing we have to do is what is really involved in the immune system. So what we have in the immune system is a variety of different as you can see in all these different aspects. You have the digestive system, you have the brain, you have the lungs, you have the nervous system, you have skin, and these different little organs, thalamus, lymph nodes, and multiple other ones that play a role in the overall immune function. Each one of these play an integral role in different factors in how to, with the skin, obviously block stuff from coming in. With the lung, also another filtration aspect of seeing what you bring into your body. Digestive, there's a millions, thousands of billions of different molecules inside your digestive system that plays a role into overall immune function, and then we can dive into more the neurological aspect as well. In terms of actual cells, Dr. Boynton is going to go into exactly more how that works, but I just wanted to bring those up because I will be covering some research that goes over different aspects of how they affect different cells, and so there is a cellular aspect to it that we're going to touch base. How chiropractic can help, everyone thinks it's more like, back pain, neck pain, but those same nerves that go to the muscles that can give you relief in back pain, neck pain also go out to the organs and the different cells of the body that can play a role in immune function. Subluxation is a small misalignment of spinal segments that cause irritation on a nerve, causing it to lose function. And so that's kind of where we can look into what nerves go out to different aspects of the body and how adjusting and aligning the spine in that area can help improve the function in, let's say, the lungs, the thalamus, and other areas of the body that can eventually down the road help the immune reaction. So if you have irritation, so let's say this area, then it can trickle down to like the lungs aren't functioning as well. When they're not functioning as well, your immune system's not going to be functioning as well, and then we can lead to potential sickness. So the more we can get the whole entire body functioning, nerves communicating well, the all better you can fight the different things you're going to be exposed to over the next couple months in the holiday season. A lot of people think, well, I don't have any pain. Do I have any of these misalignment subluxations that you talk about? And you don't exactly have to have pain to have a misalignment. Now, pain can be correlated, but it's not always, because only 18% of nerve fibers, when pinched, actually give a pain reception. So what that means is you can have up to 80% of your body not function like it should be, and especially ones going out to the immune system without you even knowing, you're like, oh, I feel fine. And so the aspect of looking at overall health and more preventative aspect that we focus on this office is understanding it's not just when you're in pain that you may need help, but it might be something where your body's not functioning, but you're not feeling it to your perception of the brain. So now we understand what the immune system does, how we can affect it, and that you may have it without knowing it. Let's look at actual studies. First study we're going to cover looks at low back pain and inflammation markers. It took 6 adjustments over a 2-week period and did blood samples before and after, and saw a decrease in both CCL3 in both the acute and chronic back pain, along with a decrease in acute group of CCL4. So what that's telling us is that a decrease in the inflammation markers. Now, inflammation can play a big role into the pattern of immune taking up resources, and so the more we can decrease the inflammation markers, the better we can handle the different stresses we put on our body. So the second study looked at low back pain in immune regulators, and again, it's going to take those 2-week period, 6 adjustments, before and after blood samples, and they found in both chronic and acute low back pain, there was a decrease in the TNF-A alpha, and also even some more reduction in some of the other factors with the chronic low back pain. Now, why it is important that we have these immune regulators decreased is that instead of them having been around the blood and working extra time during this dysfunction aspect, body's functioning better, so then they're reserved more for when the immune reaction happens, because you don't want your body to be inflamed or doing other stuff when you're not actually fighting immune issues, so that it has the reserve, so when you actually have an immune issue where you need to fight some exposure, they're ready to go. So the next study looks at enhanced T lymphocytes response after adjustment. It looks at blood and serum taken before 20 minutes after, and then 2 hours after. And even 2 hours after, it showed an increased response compared to before. So that's what it's saying is after the adjustment, the body's moving better, functioning better, the blood is more able to respond when exposed to something. So it's looking at aspect of taking it outside your body, but hopefully the same thing happens inside your body where after the adjustment, your body's able to respond and react to different things you're exposed to. Now, the last of the blood studies looked at CD4 count in HIV positive patients, which I don't know how much you know, but HIV switches over to AIDS when the CD4 count decreases enough. And so obviously it's a huge aspect to understand naturally the progression of HIV is for it to slowly decrease and eventually can lead to AIDS. And so the more we can keep that CD4 count, especially in that population, it's really important. So this study looked at a 6-month period. So we're looking more longer studied, and we had 5 controlled, 5 adjustment patients. Now the controlled showed about 8% decrease in CD4 level, which is a natural progression of the disease. So we're understanding that, and then comparing it to the adjusted where there's a 48% increase in CD4 levels. So that was a really good study looking not just blood when it's taken out, but also in the body overall levels, and understanding that obviously the same adjustment you would do for a normal patient versus someone with HIV can have a similar immune response. How we saw not just only prevent the decline, but also increase the CD4 count in an immune compromised person. And so understanding the more we can get the body moving and functioning better through the adjustment, that can help your personal immune reaction during this holiday time. Now, last thing is with ear infections. This is more of a case study, not more of a controlled study, but looking at how with kids, they have a more shallow of a eustachial tube, less of a gravity work with adults versus kids. So there's more prone, that's why you see a lot more in kids, especially when you have a lot of, colds, everything in this season, you get to see a lot more increase in ear infections. And so this study looked at how being able to adjust and get everything else moving around there, get the eustachian tube flowing better, decreasing that bacteria just staying in that area and causing more ear infections can help through chiropractic. Now that we covered exactly kind of different ways it can help immune system, I want to quickly briefly cover just the different populations that we see in our office so you understand we don't just do a particular age group, because we start as young as a couple weeks, days old with babies, especially after that pressure of getting pushed out delivery process. There's a lot of tension up in the neck, and so we do very light adjustments, making sure that C1 is very right. As they get older, we're looking at making sure they're able to rotate well, ear infections, colic type of reaction. With toddlers, they're starting to move around, they start to fall on their head, they start to fall on their sacrum. You start to look at kind of not just that top bone, but also the sacrum and how it's sitting. And again, it's a lot light pressures, more just kind of pulling, working the muscles, making sure they're moving, responding well. The nice thing with kids, especially when they're that little, they usually respond really quickly to adjustment, don't need much kind of work, they don't have that much wear and tear over top. As the kids get older, they start doing sports, they start looking down at their phones, and then we start to see more of a posture kind of build up of that and how we can help, strengthen certain muscles for kid activities, but also working with the posture so we don't get as much strain. As you start to have more leaning forward, there's more weight to the neck, more tension in the back. And so a lot of times that we talk about text neck in the office and how the more you're looking down, the more pressure on the neck. And there's just another diagram looking at how the more you get forward as well with that, you also get more of that weight. So it's not like you're just looking down, it's also more that just overall antalgic lean can cause extra stresses. Different, just more of the sitting computer jobs, looking at what we just talked about, text neck and technology. But then even more the physical labor job where you're doing actually more wear and tear on knees and other joints as well. So we do take care of a lot of different populations in our office. And if yourself, kids, loved ones, grandparents are looking to get some immune boosting during this time, make sure you just schedule an appointment, and we'd love to get you in to make sure everything's functioning as best it can, especially in those particular areas. Now, Debbie's going to talk about different toxins and how she can help decrease that toxin loads in ways you can naturally decrease it as well.
Hi, I'm Debbie Belshaw. I'm going to be giving you some basic information about toxins that can weaken your immune system. So, what are some of the things that we're talking about? We're going to begin with food as stressors to your systems. Toxic oils and fats, sugar, wheat and gluten, dairy, and GMO soy and corn are the main ones. Looking at making good nutritional choices, one of the first things we want to do is eliminate bad fats and add in good ones to reduce inflammation. We recommend that you avoid the seed oils, soybean, corn, canola, sesame seed, sunflower, and peanut. These oils are typically extracted with chemical solvents. Anytime you would add a chemical in there, of course, it's going to end up being in the product, and so there's more exposure to toxins that way. So instead, we say use extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, or even lard. Those would be much better choices and help you get the good fats that your brain and your body needs and keep your immune system strong. Those would be the choices. So another way to make good choices for nutrition, avoid foods with added sugars. They tend to increase inflammation. Dr. Boynton touched on neutrophils and phagocytes, and those are actually inhibited when you eat sugar. They last for a period of time, or the suppression lasts for a period of time, and it takes your body a little while to recover each and every time that you eat sugar. It also can harm the gut barrier function in the small intestine, and it can drive gut bacteria imbalances. So avoiding added sugars especially, we do ask that you get a balance of fruits and vegetables. Those have sugars, but they are not added sugars. Another way to make good nutritional choices is when we look at wheat or gluten. Of course, there are people that absolutely need to avoid gluten. It's very, very harmful to their bodies, but most sources of gluten in the U.S. are genetically modified. That's one of the reasons why they are very toxic. Our digestive system is highly resistant to digestive enzymes, causing incomplete digestion. Anytime you have incomplete digestion, that allows for peptides to move into the body through the small intestines. And you may have heard the term leaky gut. That's when you have little tiny, tiny holes. But as foods go through there, it can actually trigger an immune response. Your body is always looking to see is what's moving through the blood system friend or foe. When we look at foods that have entered in a state that is not really completely digested, that's when you can trigger that immune response, and it can eventually lead to autoimmune diseases. So if you can't be entirely gluten-free, if you just can't do it, then whenever you can, make the choice to be gluten-less, we say. So if you're eating out, something like that, there's a gluten-free option on the menu. There are a lot of really good choices now for gluten-free in restaurants, and at home you can pretty easily learn how to replace your regular flours and things like that with other options. Another way we say is to eat real food. What is real food? One ingredient food, or food that you make yourself with real food. And I always tell people, stay away from dead food. If it can be on the shelf for 6 months, there isn't anything alive in it. Things that come to mind immediately are cereals. If you're starting your day with a bowl of cereal and dairy, right off the bat, you have 2 things there that are pretty toxic. And of course, eat more fruits and vegetables, as we said earlier. And of course, along with that, we ask that you drink more water. Hydration is very, very important. Water is needed in the lungs to keep air passages moist and prevent them from drying up as you breathe. That's very, very important in this season of respiratory illnesses. Good hydration also supports good lymphatic flow and proper blood viscosity. So when you think of your lymphatic system, it's the sewer system of the body. It has no pump. So if you're not getting any regular exercise, if you're not doing any up and down motion with your body, then your body is not going to, or your lymphatic system is not going to be able to pump those things, the toxins out quite as well. Dehydration can exaggerate histamine activity, which of course, if you're allergic to dust and things in the home, or if you're allergic to foods, it can also trigger allergies and sometimes even asthma. And of course, water flushes toxins. So that's what we want to do, is make sure that we have enough water each and every day. We recommend half your body weight in ounces, up to 100 ounces each day. So make sure you're drinking your water. Another way that we allow toxins into our body is through chemicals and metals that we come in contact with on a daily basis. They interfere with our body's ability to fight diseases by causing free radical damage. They're hormone disruptors, they're neurotransmitter disruptors. But chemicals in particular, as a stressor, we want to take a look at the things that we have in our home that we use each and every day. Your personal care products. Think about all the soaps and the shampoos and things that you use on a daily basis. There are a lot of really good alternatives to common brands nowadays. Give us a call or contact me, and I'll be glad to share some brands that I've come across that are really less toxic. Perfumes and fragrances. Anything that has perfume in it or a fragrance in it is going to be toxic unless it's made from an essential oil or something like that. Food additives and preservatives. Read your labels. If you can't pronounce it, and sometimes they hide things in there. They use different names. You have to familiarize yourself with all the food additives and preservatives that they throw in there. Cleaning products. There's a lot of good brands that are less toxic. You can even just use vinegar and water to clean, and it really will be enough. Pesticides. We know that if you're not eating organic, and even then there's questions about that, but pesticides on our fruits and vegetables, we want to make sure that we wash them and clean them particularly well. But any thin-skinned fruits and vegetables, those are the ones that we like to look at to buy organically. For example, apples and strawberries, blueberries, things like that, that are thin-skinned. Make sure that when you eat those, you're eating organic. That gives you your best chance of having less pesticides. Things like bananas, avocado, the thicker oranges, citrus, those kinds of things. Unless you're using them for zesting in recipes, you don't really need to buy those organically. That saves you a little bit of money. Medications, we know that medications a lot of times can cause a sluggish liver and things like that. But we know that some people have to take medications, but there are ways that you can help your body eliminate the toxins from that. Vaccines, there are obviously formaldehyde, things like that in the vaccines, along with other known toxins. So just be aware that if you choose to do a vaccine, that there are ways that we can get rid of some of those toxins for you. There's always a way. Metals, also vaccines. There are a lot of mercury, other metals, aluminum. But once again, if you choose to go ahead and have vaccines, then let us help you detox from those. Dated construction. A lot of time, we're talking about lead paint, things like that. Excessive jewelry. A lot of times, even having metals on your body, that would be a thing that could cause toxins for you. Electromagnetic frequencies, those are from your cell phones, your electronics, obviously if you're working all day in front of a computer, then try to get some blue light glasses, or there are a lot of different necklaces, things like that you can wear that will actually reflect those EMFs and protect you a little bit. And of course, we always tell the kids, don't carry them on your body unless you have some kind of a protective case around them. Cooking pans, of course, cooking with aluminum, even aluminum foil. If you're wrapping your potatoes in aluminum foil, try not to do that. Or if you are baking them in the oven, you could use parchment paper around them first. That would be a little bit of a protector. Also, dental fillings. I think most people know that dental fillings are not really good. And that also would include kids with braces. Sometimes we see them have more headaches and things like that. So if you have braces or you're going through something like that, then there are some supplements that we can give that help during that time so that the metals are not as toxic for you. So, and then there are pathogens as stressors that affect our immune system. Anytime you have a pathogen that is working in your body, it's going to cause stress on your immune system. It's almost like it's distracted and fighting that, and so it gives other areas other things opportunities, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But parasites, I see a lot of people with parasites. We check for two kinds: the kind that are wormy, we call them the wormies, and then the amoebas. But the actual worms lay eggs. Sometimes you can detect those. Obviously, if you with little kids, we see pinworms every now and then, but there are also other kinds of worms that we can pick up very easily, really. They are what we call egg layers. So you might actually see little tiny pieces, looks like rice or sesame seeds in your stool. Those are can actually be the eggs of the worms. So you want to make sure that you're checking that and being aware. There's lots and lots of symptoms, especially with parasites we see during a full moon. Children get angrier, they act out more. Things get a little bit crazy during a full moon if you're dealing with parasites. So just be aware of that. They disrupt your sleep. And they can really cause a lot of anxiety. So those are some of the things we see on a regular basis with parasites. Also viruses, latent viruses. We saw a lot of Epstein-Barr during COVID that made a reappearance. So we want to really be aware that if you've had Epstein-Barr in the past, that you're, especially during flu season, there's some homeopathic drops that are really, really easy to take that help help your body deal with keeping those viruses at bay. And then obviously acute viruses and things like that as well. Fungus and yeast we typically think of as candida and mold, that kind of thing. Of course, if you've been taking any kind of an antibiotic, you'll need to make sure that you repopulate your gut with some really good a probiotic to make sure that everything is back in balance. Mold, when I ask people all the time, are you sure that your home is watertight? Is there any place that you could be growing mold within your home and you're maybe not aware? Even if you're renting, you're in an apartment, look at the clean air return or the cold air returns and make sure that there's not any kind of mold or fungus growing in there. Another pathogen that is actually more common than a lot of people realize is Lyme. Lyme makes an appearance all the time. I see a lot of that. And once again, that is something that the symptoms are all over the place with that. A lot of times it's a neurological symptom that we just can't figure out what's going on. And sure enough, we look at Lyme. So there's not really a good allopathic test for Lyme. So it's really easy. I do muscle testing, and that's how I can determine if that frequency is there. So Lyme is one thing that is not really on the radar, but it should be. So what can you do? Just continue to educate yourself. Continue to attend the lectures on various topics here at Sycamore Chiropractic and Nutrition. There's a wealth of information online, both good and bad. So be sure to have people in your life that you can trust to help you decipher the good from the bad. Begin to read labels, identify the toxins in the food you eat, the personal products you use, and just make sure that if you need more education, that you just give us a call. We'll be glad to help you in any way that we can.
Finally, Dr. Boynton will cover how functional medicine looks at the immune system, how the immune system actually works, and finally, supplements that can help you build up this immune system during stressful times and in the holidays.
As a functional medicine doctor, we run labs on all of our patients. And the lab that we run the most is the white blood cell count, because you can get so much information from this one simple test. It's very inexpensive, and it really helps to determine the strength of your immune system. So your white blood cell count, or WBC, basically is your quote-unquote military of your body. It helps to make antibodies, so you remember how to fight off infections. It is your first line of defense, and it's broken down into a few subtypes: neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. And I'm going to go over those next so you have a better understanding of what all these different components are for. Your neutrophils are your first line of attack, and they mainly fight off bacterial and fungal infections. These are your most abundant soldiers that you have in your body, and this is your first line of defense. Lymphocytes are mainly designed to scavenge and go after viruses. So those are broken down into your T cells and your B cells. Your T cells are made in your thymus gland, your B cells are made in your bone marrow, and they operate in your lymphatic system mainly. Monocytes fight germs directly, and these are what we call the Pac-Men, or what I call the Pac-Man of your body. They use something called phagocytosis. So they actually go through and devour pathogens, microbes, germs that are in your body. Once your body's immune system has killed these things, they leave a carcass or debris, and these actually go through and gobble them up. Your eosinophils have to do with fighting allergies, battling inflammation, and help to overcome and defeat parasites. Your basophils have to do with allergies, long-term parasites, and histamine problems. These are an example of what these microorganisms actually look like in your body. So these are your monocytes, these are your eosinophils, these are your basophils, lymphocytes, and neutrophils. I think they look pretty cool. So you have two main branches of your immune system. You have your innate immune system and you have your adaptive immune system. Your innate immune system is the first line of defense. That's going to be your skin, your mucous membranes. Those are the physical barriers of your body. And we're going to talk about some reservoirs that can be compromised, which allow these germs in. And on these physical barriers, there's enzymes, oils, secretions that kill the germs directly on your skin or in these regions of your body. Now, when there's a compromise, that's when these germs can get into your body and create problems. Now you have your adaptive immune system. Now that takes over when your innate immune system can no longer fight the battle against germs in your body. Your adaptive immune system, which again is made up of your T cells and B cells, and they tap into your antibodies. Your antibodies are used for a remembrance. So if you've ever had mono as a kid, whenever you have it come in contact with someone who has mono again, your body does not get sick again. It calls upon these antibodies and these T and B cells to remember how to fight mono. That way you don't get mono every single time you're exposed to the monovirus. Now these are a few of the pieces of your immune system. So we have your mucous membranes in your throat and in your nose. You got your tonsils in the back of your throat, your thymus gland, which is located right below your sternum, your spleen, your GI tract or your bowels, the mucous membrane in your bladder and genital regions, your bone marrow, and your skin. So when you have elevated levels of certain things, we know what part of your immune system is activated to know what's going on in your body. So when you have an acute infection and we see your lymphocytes elevated, we know that you have a virus. If you have an acute infection and we see your neutrophils elevated, we know that you have a bacterial infection. Now, what happens when these are low? So when you have low levels of neutrophils or monocytes or basophils, we know that you have a chronically stressed immune system. This is when we're thinking about cancer and autoimmune conditions because your immune system is basically running a marathon on the inside. Most of the people who have low levels of white blood cell counts have some degree of a chronic illness, and this has been going on for a long time. Now, when you have abnormal immune function, this is when your body starts to attack itself, and this is when autoimmune is created. So there are so many causes of autoimmunes, it's really impossible to list them all and talk about them all in this presentation, but these are just some common causes of autoimmunity. Chronic inflammation, membrane hyperpermeability, which we'll talk about later, trauma, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual, environmental stress, which Debbie did a great job of covering, pollutions, toxins, EMF, mold, heavy metals, and pathogens. Genetics, sometimes genetics have to do with autoimmune, sometimes they don't. A poor lifestyle, chronic stress, and unknown is probably the biggest thing of all these because no one really has one underlying mechanism. They have a combination of all of these, and they have a combination of this unknown, which we really have to drill into the functional medicine labs to figure out what's that underlying cause of your autoimmune condition so we can help to resolve that. Next slide, we're talking about a quick little video I found that talks about the immune system.
In this video, we're going to take a look at the human body's defense system and how it protects us against pathogens. We can split the system between the physical and chemical barriers, which stop pathogens from getting in, and our immune system, which destroys any pathogens that do make it into our bodies. Let's start with the physical and chemical barriers. If you haven't noticed, most of our body is covered in skin, which acts as a physical barrier that the pathogens can't get through. As well as just being there, it also secretes oils and antimicrobial substances, which can kill the pathogens that rest on it. So if pathogens can't get through our skin, then they're going to have to enter through holes, like the nose or the mouth. To try and prevent this, our noses are adapted by having lots of little hairs and lots of mucus, which can trap the pathogens and any other particles as they try to float through in the air. If they manage to get through this defense, then they're going to have to go through either the trachea or the esophagus, because those are the only two tubes leaving our throat. If they head for the lungs via the trachea, then they'll find that the trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles are all covered in a layer of mucus, which again will trap any particles. To prevent this mucus from building up, they're also lined with cilia, which are tiny finger-like structures that protrude from the cells. And as these cilia rhythmically move, they slowly move the mucus and any trapped particles up to the back of the throat, where we can swallow it down to the stomach. Now though, we've got all of this pathogen-filled mucus in our stomach, along with all of the pathogens that were hiding in our breakfast. Luckily though, our stomach produces hydrochloric acid, which is a really strong acid that brings the pH of the stomach contents down to about 2, which is so acidic that it kills pretty much all of the pathogens. Despite this formidable defense system though, some pathogens will always make it into our bodies. In these cases, our immune system takes over and hunts them down. The most important part of our immune system is the white blood cells, which continually patrol the body, circulating in our blood and tissues. And they have 3 important functions worth knowing. One of these is phagocytosis, which is the process by which certain white blood cells can directly consume, or to use the correct term, engulf pathogens. They do this by first tracking the pathogens down, binding to them, and then engulfing them, at which point they can destroy them. Another function is producing antitoxins. One of the reasons that pathogens cause us so much trouble is that they can produce toxins, which are effectively tiny poisons that can damage our cells. In response to this, our white blood cells produce antitoxins, which are small molecules that can bind and counteract these toxins, so that they can't do us any damage. The final function we're going to discuss is producing antibodies. Before we do though, I just want to clear up any confusion about the terms antibodies and antigens. Antigens are substances that our immune system detects as being foreign, such as the cell wall of a bacteria, or a virus protein. Antibodies, on the other hand, are small proteins made by our own white blood cells that can lock onto these foreign antigens and then act as signals to tell our white blood cells to come and destroy them. Importantly, each of our antibodies is specific for a particular antigen. So if it can bind at this particular antigen, then it won't be able to bind any others. Once our immune system knows which of our antibodies can bind the pathogens though, it starts producing loads of them, and it remembers this for next time. So if we're attacked by that pathogen sometime in the future, then our body will start producing so many antibodies so quickly that will destroy all the pathogens before they get the chance to develop. Which is what we mean when we say that we're immune to a disease.
Now, if you've listened to any of my talks before, I like to talk about the physiological web of problems. So these are some mechanisms involved with the persistent infections. So we have a pathogen or a germ, so to speak. Now, what allows that to wreak havoc on our body? So, are our bodies antibiotic resistant? Do we have a significant immune invasion? Do they have biofilms associated with them? Is our immune system compromised? Are there pathogens going in through our reservoirs? Or have we lost our immune tolerance? The answer is one or all of those things. We can have chronic infections of bacteria, viruses, and parasites. We can have latent or dormant infections that can be reactivated through bacteria, parasites, and viruses. We can have reoccurrent infections. That happens when the bacteria, viruses, or parasites lay just below the surface of our mucous membrane. And whenever that mucous membrane is re-aggravated, it basically takes off that layer of protection that the body has laid down, and then the infection can come out and party again, basically, and we'll talk more about that later. So one of the biggest causes of all medical conditions is inflammation. Inflammation weakens your immune system in general, and so many things cause inflammation. And when you have inflammation in your body, that's going to cause your mitochondria to uncouple. If you remember back from high school biology class, remember that mitochondria are the power plants of the cell. That's what helps to make cellular energy. And when you have chronic inflammation, your body can't make energy. And when you can't make energy, you can't fuel your immune system. And when you can't fuel your immune system, that's when your autoimmune conditions can be activated. And when you have inflammation, you can get neuroinflammation. Neuroinflammation is where your immune system can impact your nerves. And when that happens, you develop chronic disease. Whenever you have chronic inflammation, you're also going to use up your antioxidant reserves. And when your antioxidant reserves are used up, you have elevated oxidative stress. When you have elevated oxidative stress, you have free radical damage. Free radical damage causes your body to age prematurely, and it impacts the telomeres on the end of your DNA. So you start making damaged DNA. And when you replicate damaged DNA, chronic illness and sometimes cancers can be the cause of that. And when your microbiome is dysfunctional, this leads to a myriad of other problems. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. And your microbiome is in your GI tract. So these are some common bacteria and viruses. Maybe you've heard of these, maybe you haven't. Obviously, we've all heard of kind of the COVID SARS, which is still impacting people to this day. Norovirus is a common thing that's going to be a stomach flu. Rotavirus is going to cause some diarrhea. Parvovirus is going to be in your GI tract. Here's some viral infections: herpes 1, herpes 2. These are mainly cold sores or genital herpes. Cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr mono. More persistent viruses are hepatitis C and HPV. And these are all things that can impact our immune system now acutely causing us to have elevated white blood cell counts, elevated monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, neutrophils, and lymphocytes, or chronic. Now we're going to see low white blood cell, we're going to see low lymphocytes, we're going to see low monocytes and low eosinophils. So what happens when we have disruption of our microbiome in these reservoirs? So these are called reservoirs. So that's how these pathogens or germs can enter into our body. So if our membranes are not permeable, nothing gets through. When they're hyperpermeable, the quote-unquote bad guys or germs get through into our body and cause us to have inflammation. Inflammation weakens our immune system. So these are some common reservoirs. The respiratory tracts, you're going to breathe that in through your nose or through your mouth, through your blood, through your skin, through your mouth, through your GI tract, and through your reproductive area. So those are all the reservoirs of infections that can cause inflammation in the disease process. So these are other common bacterial infections or reservoirs. So you can get bacterial meningitis, which affects your brain, otitis media, that's ear infections, pneumonia is in your lungs, skin infections is obviously in your skin, eye infections, chronic sinusitis, upper respiratory tract infections, gastritis, which is going to be in your stomach, food poisoning, which is going to impact your GI tract, sexually transmitted diseases, and urinary tract infections. So these are all the names of these pathogens or bacteria that can go in through these reservoirs, and this is what they're all named. Next, we're going to talk about endotoxemia. Endotoxemia is when you have a significant breach in the blood and the gut barrier. So this is an unhealthy intestinal membrane or barrier. You can see that there's no big holes in the lining of the GI tract, so your GI tract is only one cell thick. So when you have a leaky gut, these cells split apart due to inflammation and pathogens, and these harmful bacteria, these dysbiotic bacteria, can actually get into your bloodstream, causing endotoxemia. This creates systemic inflammation in your body. This is a huge driver of autoimmunity and also a huge driver of Alzheimer's and dementia. Because as you get older, you have a higher likelihood of developing leaky gut. Leaky gut then turns into leaky brain. The same thing happens in your blood-brain barrier, and these inflammatory pathogens get in through the brain barrier and create inflammation in your glial cells. The body lays down amyloid plaquing, which doesn't allow the cells to communicate properly in your brain, and your brain starts to get inflamed. And when you have diabetes on top of this, it's even a double whammy because you already have an underlying level of inflammation, and you're most certainly going to develop Alzheimer's and dementia. So keeping your gut healthy is really a key to healthiness now in your current health and healthiness in your future for your brain as you get older. So there can be a lot of translocation of the gut into different parts of your body. So what does that mean? So when you have a disruption of your gut barrier, which we see here, this is normal. So we see here on the diagram to your left, we see homeostasis and proper membrane permeability. Nutrients are allowed to get through and absorb into your bloodstream. But what happens when we get leaky gut or membrane hyperpermeability? Things get through the gut lining. Things like food proteins, which we see as food sensitivities, endotoxemia, which is bacteria, viruses, they can get in through the gut barrier into the bloodstream, and they get systemic. When they get systemic, these are things we can see in sepsis, systemic inflammation, autoimmunity, brain disorders, which I just talked about, heart disease, liver pathology like cirrhosis, islet cells, so this is going to be diabetes and obesity. It can cause kidney failure. It can cause lung damage and COPD. It can cause cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, and insulin resistance. So you can see keeping your gut membrane barrier healthy is very important, not only for your gut health, but for your overall body health. So what happens when we do get these bacteria in our bodies, and when they're chronic, they develop biofilm. So biofilm is a thin layer of mucus and other adjuvants that actually go over the bacteria, which disguise the pathogens from your immune system, and they don't allow things like antibiotics and other natural remedies to actually get in there and kill them. So biofilm is a big problem, and this is what this research article right here talks about. This is biofilm and how it impacts irritable bowel syndrome and ulcerative colitis. And you can see here that people who have membrane hyperpermeability and intestinal biofilms, of these folks, 57% of them have IBS and 34% of them have ulcerative colitis. So that's a significant portion. This means that antibiotics will not work as well on these people because of the chronicity of their disease. So what can we do about these biofilms? I'm glad you asked. So we can give enzymes, trypsin, nattokinase, serrapeptase, and lumbrokinase. These are enzymes that start to dissolve the biofilm and thin that membrane so that we can get our nutraceuticals in there to kill these pathogens. These are some botanical disruptors. So these would be your herbs: ginger, oregano, berberine, quercetin, curcumin, green tea, and garlic. This is what's going to be in a lot of the supplements that we recommend to help people kill viruses, parasites, monocytes, and bacteria, and all the harmful things are in the body. And these are some nutraceuticals. So these are more vitamins and minerals that will help to disrupt that. Monolaurin, which comes from coconut extract, N-acetylcysteine, chitosan, and colloidal silver, just to name a few. So these are foods that can also help impact and disrupt biofilms. Honey, apple cider vinegar, garlic, ginger, olive oil, and cranberry. So one thing I like to recommend to my patients when they have upper respiratory infections or chronic sinusitis is to drink an elixir of ginger, honey, apple cider vinegar, and lemon juice. So they almost make that into a tea and drink that. That's going to help dissolve the mucus in their throat and help their body overcome these infections a little bit quicker. When you're ill, your body wants to produce more mucus. And when you eat foods that produce more mucus, like the content on the right, milk products, fried food, breads, high sugar foods, high salt foods, fast food days, all of these foods cause your body to produce more mucus. More mucus is going to cause biofilms to become worse. When biofilms are worse, it's harder to get well. When people have chronic illnesses, they have biofilm. So you want to avoid these foods. And all these foods are also high inflammatory foods, so they weaken your immune system in general. So you want to eat a lot of mucus preventing foods like apple cider vinegar, oily fish, pineapples, citrus fruits, garlic, onions, cauliflower, and ginger. Now, when you have these chronic pathogens in your body and your body becomes antibiotic resistant, this is where those dissemination of antibiotics. I know this slide might be a little hard to read because there's a lot of things on here, but you might be thinking to yourself, Dr. Boynton, I haven't been on antibiotics for years, so why do I have antibiotic resistant bacteria in my body? Well, it's because you eat food and drink water, unfortunately. So a lot of the foods that we eat, these animals are fed antibiotics. So when we eat animals that have been fed antibiotics, the bacteria in our guts become antibiotic resistant because they're so accustomed to consuming antibiotics from the foods that we eat. It's in the water that we drink. Because our water filtration systems are not designed to filter out antibiotics, whenever you take an antibiotic, you're going to excrete that antibiotic out through your urine into the toilet. That goes to the sewer filtration, that goes to the sewer processing plants and gets recycled back into our reservoirs, which goes back into your drinking water, along with antibiotics, high blood pressure medications, antidepressant medications. These are all in our water. So this is why we have an antibiotic resistant culture phenomenon going on in our society that we didn't have 100 years ago. And then if you are in hospitals, if you work in hospitals or have been in extended care facilities and you're around a lot of people who are on antibiotics, this can also cause your body to become immune resistant to antibiotics. Now, one good thing is that antibiotic resistant bacteria seem to still be killed by natural things. From the research I've done, there's not too many natural bacterias, or there's not too many natural nutraceuticals that the body has become antibiotic resistant to. Obviously, antibiotic resistant means specifically antibiotics. Sometimes when you have a lot of antibiotic resistant bacteria in your gut or in your body, you just have to take a lot of supplements to do the job. So there's different places in your body where we have bacteria. We all probably know that we have bacteria in our GI tracts, but we also have bacteria in our mouths, in our sinuses, in our lungs, on our skin, and women have them in their vaginas. So we have different probiotics throughout our entire body, and they're very important for us to stay healthy. So whenever you're taking an oral antibiotic, it's going to weaken the immune system of all of those places in your body. So whenever you have a common cold, this antibiotic is going to impact your lungs, your sinuses, your gut, and your vagina. So taking probiotics whenever you're on an antibiotic is crucial. This is just a study. So this is a comprehensive study of 14 different studies with about 1,524 patients in it. And this shows that whenever patients took antibiotics, they had a much higher likelihood of not developing antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and it helped the antibiotic work better. So people always ask me, should I take a probiotic when I'm on antibiotics? The answer is always yes. What kind? It doesn't matter. How many should I take? It doesn't matter. When should I take them? It doesn't matter. The most important thing is, and this is what all the research tells us, is that you need to take the highest quality probiotic that you can when you're taking antibiotics. So what I have my patients do is we have a lot of highly formulated and specific antibiotic resistant probiotics that contain Saccharomyces boulardii. Well, why is Saccharomyces boulardii an antibiotic resistant supplement? Because it's a beneficial yeast, and antibiotics do not kill yeast. So whenever my patients are on antibiotics, we always give them a probiotic that contains a lot of Saccharomyces boulardii. I like about 5 million per capsule, and I recommend taking that away from the antibiotic. So if they're taking an antibiotic twice a day, I tell the patient to take the antibiotic at breakfast and at lunch, and then take this probiotic with Saccharomyces boulardii at dinner time or away from it. That way you can get the most coverage in your body. And also the use of short chain fatty acids whenever you're on antibiotics is also really important. That's going to be your butyric acid. That's going to help to maintain the permeability of your gut membranes. Now, what are some mechanisms that are employed when people have chronic immune system compromise? So they are deficient in micronutrients. So these are your micronutrients that are important for immune system function. These are your macros. Some patients just simply are not getting in enough protein. Your immune system, of all the macronutrients, your immune system needs protein way more than carbohydrates or fats. So if you have an immune compromised body, you need to get at least half your body weight in of protein every single day. And if that's tough for you to do, drink it through a non-GMO, non-dairy protein shake every single day just to get your protein up so that you can give your immune system fuel that it needs to go after these pathogens. You need to have proper microbiome balance. So when you have an imbalance of dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of bacteria, lack of diversity, you have lots of bacteria throughout your body, leaky gut, malabsorption, parasites. When your endocrine system is dysfunctional, this creates inflammation in your body, which also weakens your immune system. Toxicity, which Debbie talked about a lot, so chemicals, toxins, and pollutants, and EMFs can really weaken your immune system. And unhealthy lifestyle. Physiological stress, overtraining, lack of sleep, lack of exercise, smoking, alcohol, and eating disorders. These are all things that can compromise your immune system. So what can we do about all these things? So we've kind of come up with a couple supplement recommendations that we like to use. And these are all things that we sell in our apothecary. at Sycamore Integrative Health Center, and you can actually go to our website and order all these and have them sent straight to your home. We partner with a company called Nutridyne, and their supplements are fantastic. We use them every single day, and they're designed and backed by clinical research, and they always use third-party companies to assay the products, which means that whatever they say is on the label is actually in there. Not all companies use these third parties because they're very expensive to have them come in and assay everything, but it's crucial because I can't recommend a supplement to a patient and not know that it's going to work. So that's why we have partnered with Nutridyne. So vitamin D3 is probably one of my favorite products. It's pretty inexpensive, and it really helps to support every function of your immune system. So you can only afford one thing to take to boost your immune system, that's vitamin D3. Most adults can take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every day very safely, and it's important that you combine it with vitamin K2 to help with the absorption. Next, Total Health Essentials. So this is a very comprehensive formula. This is going to be your multivitamin, your multimineral, your methylation support, your omega-3s, some probiotics, and a whole bunch of phytonutrients to help boost your antioxidant status. Because whenever your antioxidants are low, you're not methylating properly, and you're not getting enough nutrients, your body's going to become immune compromised. So this has 30 packets every single day. So you should take a packet out every single day to ensure that your body gets all the micronutrients you need to stay well. Next is a daily probiotic. And you can see here that the very first ingredient is Saccharomyces boulardii at 5 billion. So whenever you're on an antibiotic, it's crucial that you take Saccharomyces boulardii along with a whole host of other bacteria for a nice robust product. When you are sick, you definitely need a lot more vitamin D3 when you are sick compared to the 5,000 when you're just kind of doing your daily maintenance thing. So when you're ill, you need to take at least 10,000. These are adult doses, not kids doses. When you're sick, I recommend anywhere from 10 to 50,000 IUs of vitamin D3 a day for no more than 4 days. Too much vitamin D3 is bad. Not enough is bad in a different way. But this is just going to give your immune system fuel to help fight anything, whether it be a bacteria or a virus. So taking high levels of vitamin D3 when you're sick is very important, especially if it's viral. If you have a bacterial infection, Microbiome Pro is designed to help dissolve the biofilms with the EDTA, the ginger, and the oregano, the serrapeptase. So these are designed to help break down the biofilms, and this is more going to be a bacterial or fungal infection. If you have a viral infection, you need lots of antioxidants and lots of herbs. So quercetin and green tea and resveratrol are going to be your antioxidants, along with some turmeric, and the antivirals like elderberry and rhodiographis are going to help to wipe out the viral load that you have on your body. Next is nutricidin. That's going to work on your fungal infections. Histamine support or Allerpro. This is going to, or allergy support, this is going to work on all your histamine responses. So this is a good thing to take whenever you're having seasonal allergy problems. And Paracleanse. So we all have parasites. Don't be alarmed by that, but most of them are not pathogenic, which means they're bad for you. Most of them are symbiotic, which just means they just kind of hang out in our bodies. But when you have a problematic parasites, you're going to see some watery stools or diarrhea, fatigue, and a lot of chronic skin and joint pain. Now we're thinking parasites. So that's all we have for you tonight. So I want to thank you for your time, for listening to our presentation. I want to thank Dr. Luke and Debbie for their time putting this together with me. So we want to give you guys an opportunity to take advantage of an end of a year sale. So we're going to give you, for the remainder of the year, we're going to give you 10% off all the supplements from our website, which I had mentioned in these previous slides. All these supplements are designed for acute health problems, not for chronic problems. If you have chronic problems, you're going to need to see me for a functional medicine consultation or exam, because chronic problems have so many layers of problems that just taking one or two supplements really isn't going to make the biggest change. And if you do have chronic problems, you've probably tried a lot of things on your own. So we really need to tackle chronic health problems from a nutrition, diet, lifestyle, and nutraceutical approach, not just a product for a symptom, but why do you have the symptom? What do your labs say? We got to kind of drill down into your physiology. That's when we start looking at the neutrophils and the basophils and the eosinophils and what do those look like? Where are those made? What is that telling us? So again, thanks for your time. Have a Merry Christmas and a blessed rest of your year.